Hey you guys, today we are going to talk about Leave No Trace principle number 5, that is to minimize campfire impacts, and that's our little hand signal for it. So what you're seeing here is a typical scene when we walk up on a fire ring at a campsite. Notice there are a lot of charred sticks, there's trash, and let me welcome my guest. Actually, he came with me. This is Sir Trammell Steward Bankhead. He is our feral hog, and he's going to be appearing in some of these videos with me. So he's my assistant. He was not here. I did not find him here. One of my good friends, Mary, gave me him to replace another that was kidnapped from my office. So backstory will come later. So we get to a campsite and we find the fire ring, and typically there's a lot of what we call micro trash in it. And this one's got some paracord. So many things are not needed here. For one, these are too big. When you go for firewood, it should be smaller than your wrist, no larger than your wrist. It should be dead, down, dinky, and distant. That's the 4 Ds. So usually what I do is we take the, Betty, if you want to haul off some of these big guys, yep. And we disperse these way far away from your fire ring and away from water. Then I usually get the stuff that's acceptable to burn, and I kind of pile it off to the side. And one thing that's just frustrating is a fire pit is not a trash can, and foil does not burn. So once I got kind of these bigger pieces set off to the side, then I can see my trash, and I always carry some Walmart bags. And then I start getting all the micro trash. Gather all that up. Get that out of the way. So the problem we have here is that if we don't clean the coals out on a regular basis, it gets really high. And then what people have a tendency to do is they start adding rocks to where the fire ring just gets bigger and bigger. And what that is doing is if you're taking rocks from a creek, you're taking away from habitat. So that's not best practice to keep adding rocks so it gets higher and higher. Another not good practice is something else we see is that instead of adding rocks, what people will do is take the rocks out of this area and build a new fire ring off to the side, which means that a campsite could have multiple burn scars in a campsite, which contributes to the amount of bare mineral soil that you would have in a campsite. So best practice to me, what can you as a forest visitor and user and public land user, what can you do to help when you go camping? Well, you can carry a small folding shovel. Now I don't have a small one today. This is what we've been using. I know you don't want to carry this, especially if you're going lightweight. I mean, you could even use your trowel that you use for digging your cat hole. But essentially, you can start, before you even build a fire, you can go ahead and get some of the coals out and disperse them yourself before you build a fire. And when you disperse the coals, what you want to do is take them Like right now, to my right of me is the creek, and to my left of me is a side slope that goes up to bluffs. You can broadcast the coals way far away from water going up the side slope. It can actually be a decent soil component when it's away from the riparian areas. So get as far away from your campsite and your water as you can, and then broadcast your ashes. When I say broadcast, fling them around, so it's not like a lump or a pile of ashes, kind of like you do when you do your dishwater. And then you just continue to, what I don't recommend is you don't want to disperse your ashes at the end of a camp trip, because what if there is still a burning coal or ember in those ashes? So do this when you get to camp, and if you can get into the practice of doing that, then we don't get these huge fire rings. Next thing is, how do you put out a fire with good old-fashioned water? There are so many places in the Sipsey and Bankhead. Most of our campsites are near water, which is still not best practice, but it's almost inevitable here. So what you can do is go get water, come back, pour it, make sure it is completely cold. Use as much water as you can. You can even take a stick and kind of stir it up, makes like soup, but don't drink the soup. So I guess that is probably best practice for campfires. Unless I'm forgetting something, Betty, Mary, feel free to chime in.
If water's not available, they can cover it with sand.
You can cover it with sand. In ultimate desperation, you can cover it with maybe a few smaller rocks, or to keep, like if a straight line wind were to come, it wouldn't pick up the ashes. But that's sort of like, say you're on a ridge top and you absolutely have no water. Best practice would be to wait for it to go out, stay with it until it is actually out. But if you're going to make the poor choice of leaving it, just put some rocks on it. But please don't do that. So with that being said, my volunteers volunteers and myself, we're going to rehabilitate this fire ring and get some good pictures of that. Thanks for listening.